going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Picks for Week 13 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with your final depth chart update of the week. I've got depth charts for the two games on Saturday to help put the final pieces of the puzzle together for your Week 13 lineups. Everything kicks off tonight on Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time, so make sure you get your lineups locked in. And hopefully this is a good week for you for CFL Fantasy. Let's start off by going through the lineups here for the first game, the Toronto Argonauts and the BC Lions. And let's start off with the Argos. A couple notable changes here on their side of things, at receiver particularly this week, as we see Damien Jean-Pierre come off the active roster and is replaced in the starting slot by Drez Anderson. I apologize if I mispronounced that. He will be getting his first start there for the Argos. What has he done in the lineup? This is his first career start. He spent some time moving around to different NFL practice rosters for a number of years before signing with the Argos in 2019. Also at receiver, Chandler Worthy moves to a backup role this week. And Tommy Neild, who's been a backup behind Worthy for a couple weeks in a row, is now getting into the starting slot at slot back. This is also his first career CFL start, a fourth-round pick, 30th overall by the Argos in the 2021 CFL Draft. A Canadian is Tommy Neild. Excited to see what either of these guys does in the starting lineup. Hard to really bank one way or the other without seeing them play already in the CFL, but potentially some cheap options for your fantasy lineup there. McLeod Bethel Thompson is the go-to quarterback for this team going forward and gets to start again this week, as he has for a number of weeks in a row. With Nick Arbuckle officially off to the Edmonton Elks, Bethel Thompson gets the start. Antonio Pipkin will be his backup. At running back, just like last week, DJ Foster, the starter, John White, the backup at running back. I expect it to be a pretty even split like we've seen most weeks between these two, regardless of who is the starting running back. The total field at wide receiver, you've got Devarius Daniels, Drez Anderson, Curley Gittins Jr., who's having a fantastic year, Ricky Collins Jr. and Tommy Neild. So a couple changes there at receiver for the Argos. Still no Eric Rogers there. And handling kick return duties, I imagine we'll see Chandler Worthy handle those again this week, especially with him not slotting in as a starter at receiver as well. On the defensive side of the ball, a couple pieces back in. Cordero Law back on the defensive line. They get Cameron Judge back in the lineup, although he's listed as a third string right now, so maybe they're just easing him back in there. And so a couple changes accordingly for the Argos this week. Lots of moving pieces. And same thing for their opponents, the BC Lions. A lot of overhaul on the roster this week, fantasy-wise. Lucky Whitehead is back off the 6-game injured list and back onto the starting lineup this week. So good to see him back. He has been the bright spot for the Lions this year, one of the top receivers in the league. He'll start at his typical slot at wideout, at wide receiver. Also back in the lineup after missing a number of weeks is Dominic Rhymes, who has been on the 6-game injured list for a while. Really struggled to get anything going early in the season. We'll see how he performs coming back from injury. And, the Lions have struggled a lot as of late, so could use a big boost with these two guys back. Unfortunately, though, they do have a couple other starting receivers that are out of the lineup. Lamar Durant is off the active roster, so is DeVere Posey and Keon Hatcher. If you watched my wide receiver preview earlier this week, Hatcher was kind of the only Lions receiver I was potentially recommending, given his cheap salary, but he will not be playing this week. Javon Catoy is in the lineup still, but is listed as a backup behind Dominic Rhymes. So the Lions at receiver will be lining up with the starters as Lucky Whitehead, Brian Burnham, Dominic Rhymes, Jacob Scarfoni getting into the starting slot here, and Shaq Johnson reclaiming his starting spot at wideout as well. As I mentioned, Javon Catoy is a backup there as well. At running back, it's James Butler. At returner, it's Chris Rainey. Quarterback, Michael Riley is the starter once again, of course. He will have a new backup this week, though. Nathan Rourke came in to replace Riley last week against the Bombers and ended up getting injured that game. Riley had to come back in to finish that game off. So Rourke is not ready to go this week. So Kevin Thompson comes off the practice roster and will be the backup. But it is Michael Riley getting the start for BC. On the defensive side of the ball, a couple small changes there, but nothing too notable to touch on in that regard. And then moving into the last game of the week, the Saskatchewan Roughriders hosting they are away. They are at Percival Molson Stadium to visit the Montreal Alouettes. The Riders have a single notable change this week at receiver with Mitchell Picton getting back onto the active roster and into a starting slot. And in a bit of a surprise here, he's been the breakout star for the Riders this year. Keon Schaefer-Baker is a backup behind Mitchell Picton this week. The Riders will be rolling with Shaq Evans, Duke Williams, Braden Lenius, Kyron Moore, and Picton as their starting receivers. Schaefer-Baker is a backup. Jake Hardy's a backup behind Lenius. And Rashard Davis, a backup behind Kyron Moore, and will likely handle kick returns for a second straight game. So a bit of a surprise to see Schaefer-Baker into a backup role, and we'll see what Picton does back in the lineup. I'm excited to see what Shaq Evans and Duke Williams do to follow up their first game, either back or in the lineup as a whole, now that they have a game underneath them. Cody Fajardo starts at quarterback. Of course, William Powell is the starting running back for the Riders this week. And no John Ryan at the punter position. First perhaps punter injury to talk about this year. I feel like we don't see those too often, but they will have I believe a global punter. Vedvik is the last name. I apologize. I did not prepare the first name on the new punter for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Let's look it up right now to get it right. We want to make sure we say who he is. It's Kari Vedvik, a Norwegian professional gridiron football place kicker, according to Wikipedia. So best of luck to him in his first start for the Riders this week. They will be facing the Montreal Alouettes, who have mostly the same lineup as last week. Matt Schultz gets the start again at quarterback. Trevor Harris, recently acquired from the Edmonton Elks, is the backup behind Schultz this week. Won't get into a starting role. They continue to go with Schultz, and rightfully so. I think he's earned it based on recent play in the couple games he's gotten to start. William Stanback is your running back again. Jeshurun Antwi, the backup. Cameron Artis-Payne not back onto the active roster here yet for Montreal. We'll see if he gets back in after he had some successful games earlier this year. But Stanback definitely the starter. And we'll see if he can put up another 200-yard game like he did the game before. I'm going to guess probably not against the Riders. Pretty strong run defense, but you never know. At receiver, it's the same crew as last week. Eugene Lewis, Jake Weineke, Quan Bray, Keon Julian Grant, and Reggie White Jr. getting his second straight start in place of the injured BJ Cunningham. At kick return, it continues to be a revolving door, except it seems the Alouettes finally have their the proper kick return handler, a guy dedicated to the role for the first time since Mario Alford went down with injury earlier this year. Martese Jackson is in for the Alouettes, recently acquired, recently signed, spent some time, I know, with the Argos, with the Edmonton organization in the past, and is known as a good quality return man there. So I just checked, he wasn't available in CFL Fantasy as a pick at this point. If he does get in there as a super cheap running back option, I don't hate that potential if you're looking to spend money elsewhere and just punt it at running back. Those are the notable changes for the Alouettes. Defensively, everything looks pretty much the same as last week for them there. So those are your depth charts for week number 13. Make sure you get those lineups set before the games kick off tonight. And hope you have a fantastic week of CFL Fantasy. Hope we see you at the top of the leaderboards. Hit that 100-point week. I hope you enjoy a great weekend of CFL games. I'll be back next week to preview week number 14. Do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section or tweet them at me at CooperTrooper42. Link to that's in the video description. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy alongside myself and other viewers, you can check out a link in the video description as well to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix group over on the official CFL Fantasy site. You can play alongside myself and other viewers this week and every week throughout the 2021 CFL season. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.